Hello all, and welcome back to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. Last time we tackled the Shrines of Akala with the exclusion of Dinral's scale for the Shrine quest. We are today going to make our way across what is inarguably one of the roughest, most dangerous terrains in the entire Legend of Zelda history. And this, of course, if you've been here for a while, is Death Mountain. For those that know Death Mountain, this next bit isn't necessarily going to sound the most entertaining. For those that don't, Death Mountain has existed in some capacity since the original Zelda, changing in some capacity with every single game it has been in, sometimes including its entire geography and location. But by and large, the Death Mountain that we know in Breath of the Wild is very similar to what I would consider the Ocarina of Time Twilight Princess positioning, which is reasonably okay. Wow, he hits like a truck. The major, I suppose, drawback of this particular location is the heat. While some have a very pristine waters, the Death Mountain has effectively found a way to cook its very inhabitants on a daily basis, making it one of the most dangerous locations for a hylian to ever visit. Now, among its denizens include magma chew jellies, which explode on contact with anything. We have often fire-breathing Lizalfos that are capable of lighting Link a flame. We also have, typically in some of the older games, Lynels, as well as Gorons. Now, if you were to talk about Gorons in any capacity, there are a few that come to mind that bear mentioning every time you look into Death Mountain as a whole. These being characters like Darmani, Darbus, Daruk, Darunya. We also have Yanobo, and each of these characters is meant to be part of the overall world, but they also are probably some of the most steadfast characters that you will ever find in a video game. Each and every one of them has something that they do right when it comes to making a character that is strong-willed. Someone who is more than happy to step up and be the person who helps, but is often too proud to ask for it themselves. Generally speaking, the Gorons, which originally appeared in Ocarina of Time, have this nasty habit of getting themselves into a fix and not really having any solutions, any ways of getting around it. And thus, they end up doing what we all end up doing eventually, and that is that they hole up on their mountain and say, yep, this is our mountain, nobody comes near because this is a Goron problem. They're too proud to accept that outside help at all. And if I'm being honest, if there was a group in all of Zelda that believes in personal strength that wasn't Ganondorf and could definitely have the Triforce of Power, it would be a Goron. See, against the serene grace of the Zora tribe, the Gorons are more tribal in nature. They are much more individualistic in many ways, but they are also no, they're not very individualistic. They're individualistic tribe to tribe, but they are very much for the common good of the whole. That's the way I want to word this. And so you end up with a group that often Link receives resistance from simply trying to get close enough to help them. And that's a crying shame, because often I feel like the Gorons could have it easier if they took help from other groups around them. But, what do I know? I'm also just an average Joe. But there are aspects of these characters that often make me question or wonder just how hard it would be to be in said society. Anywho, you've read the title. We're doing the Death Mountain run today. And in Breath of the Wild specifically, anytime you enter Death Mountain, or rather explicitly the first time you enter Death Mountain, you end up in a very rough circumstance that I personally find kind of funny. Which is that getting to the Sheikah Tower is the easy part. Once you get there, you enter the run proper. The last half of climbing Death Mountain is all about getting there as quickly as possible. Because getting to Goron City after the shrine, or after the tower, Link will be, how do I word this eloquently? He'll be on fire. And, well, that's not exactly something that the average person would necessarily want or be capable of doing. Thus, for the entire duration of the run, once you start on fire, it's about getting as far as you can, as fast as you can, and hoping that you have the food reserves to heal your character back up in between different sections of the run. And that is going to be the biggest challenge for this particular section, is knowing how best to approach getting to the Goron. Now, I had received a question, I suppose it was last week, that asked whether or not wind bombs are allowed. Now, the rules of my particular challenge run are effectively that the 3 weapon tabs, that being the sword, shield, and bow tab, are all banned items. But any other items, including Sheikah runes, including just grab-and-go type items like chew jellies or whatnot, are more than welcome to be used. Now, there are certain techniques and things that people do in Breath of the Wild on a regular basis for speedrunning that I will not do. For example, there is the bow glitch that sends you flying backwards. But wind bombs are not necessarily something that I have ever been capable of pulling off, but it is something that I am more than happy to do as soon as I figure out how to do it. I tend to play much more of the simple run-around Hyrule mentality over the more bombastic sending yourself flying mentality. It's not necessarily anything wrong with it, just a different state of mind, a different way of playing. But there are a few shrines that I have identified already that will require some form of wind bomb to be able to reach the finale of the dungeons as a whole. And that's kind of concerning. Because if I'm being honest, I'm already in a situation that the game is going to be a lot harder just on the basis of I'm not allowed to use weapons. So we'll see what happens. I have faith that it is nearly possible to beat without using any formal weapons throughout the entire game. But nearly possible is something that is kind of a rather difficult situation. I know, for example, that I cannot beat Beast Ganon without a bow. I know, for example, that I cannot beat the Calamity Ganon's main body unless I have a shield. And those two situations are rather telling for what the rest of the run is going to look like. It is going to be very difficult going forward to keep the items that I have from becoming a detriment. And it's going to be a lot of adjusting on the fly as we go. But who knows? Maybe I'm overthinking it. I've been known to do that once or twice. Anywho, we are officially at the tower. And now begins the run proper. Once we, of course, reach the top. I will also say that I am skipping as many of the shrines today as possible. Because, I'll be honest, unless you have fireproof clothing, you aren't reaching most of them to begin with. And Death Mountain ain't exactly the most pleasant trip to go on these days. It is, however, one of the best locales for hot springs. A small healing spot that costs nothing for you, except maybe a little bit of time. The goal of the healing springs is to allow the player to be able to access more of the world without necessarily needing to constantly stop and eat, but is something that will also come up as being a significant issue in the future. Now, just pausing for a moment, just to the north of the lava pool is part of the path where Dinral, the fire dragon, tends to fly past on a regular basis. Dinral is an ancient dragon, probably somewhat related to Din, or having a blessing from Din, or something of that nature. Just due to the fact that it is a fire dragon, and each of the dragons that appeared in Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom have some ties to holy beings, or gods, goddesses, or anything of that like. Theoretically, that would mean that it could be an incarnation of Din herself, or Dinral could be a devout follower, blessed by Dinral prior. Whatever the case may be, Dinral is a protector of sorts for Hyrule. But more than just being a protector of Hyrule, it also has items that are required for progression. This includes Dinral's Scale. Now, Dinral's Scale is effectively just a spicy slab of rock. But at the Shrine of Power in the Akala region, if you were to put said slicey slab of rock, the spicy slab of rock into a pool of water, you will, of course, gain access to the Shrine of Power, which is usually, if my memory is accurate, just like a blessing shrine. Regardless, blessing shrines are very easy health that you as the player can gain access to. Another little tidbit. If ever you are on fire, stop what you're doing, heal immediately. Second tidbit, and arguably much more important and useful than the first, is that you are capable of putting out flames while you talk to NPCs, meaning that theoretically you can get further into the mountain by talking to people. Secondly, if you have a large weapon, I'm thinking something in the ballpark of a we'll call it like a claymore or something of that nature. The large spin attack can reset the flame timer, allowing you to travel up Death Mountain much more readily. These are discoveries that came later on in the game's lifespan. I wanted to emulate and showcase what the average person's first run up Death Mountain looked like. And even then, I'm still doing it wrong because I've planned ahead accordingly. Most people end up running up Death Mountain dying by this point simply due to not having the resources on hand to be able to actually complete said task. But that is what it is. So, I mentioned the Gorons, and there's a few that come to mind that I want to really dial in and talk about. The first is Darunia. In Ocarina of Time, Darunia... Oh, wow, okay, that is spicy. Anyways, Darunia was dealing with a severe food shortage in his time. One that was unfortunately very difficult for the Gorons to be able to solve, because the Dodongos were a large fire-breathing lizard that theoretically would eat Gorons or fight them back, meaning that the most delicious rocks in all of Death Mountain were out of reach as a direct result of this, I suppose, increase of lizards in Death Mountain's area and surroundings. He, of course, made a bet with a child that the kiddo couldn't solve his problem, believing that the kid was going to showcase exactly why he felt the way he was, and he was going to use it as justification as to why the Gorons don't accept help. And then it was proven that a child beat him at his own game. Daruk was much more of a proud Goron, focusing in on his innate capabilities and champion's power that allowed him to effectively be the perfect shield, capable of attacking and defending virtually simultaneously with minimal losses or weaknesses. Daruk became one of, if not the most powerful beings of his era, as a result of not needing to be held down by the same standards that fit other individuals, other races. And Daruk became the primary leader of the Gorons, partially because of this. Third, we have Darmani. Now, Darmani is not a Death Mountain Goron, but Darmani is a Goron of Termina. And while you, the player, never actually meet Darmani while he's alive, Darmani is one of the most, I suppose, recognizable or useful members of the Gorons, because his whole ideology is that even death wouldn't slow him down. You can't go out dressed like that. You go change your gear. I want to sell my food. Okay, let's make it quick. What do you want? Here, take my diamonds. Please, hurry. Just hurry. Thank you. Here, topaz? Okay, cool. You have my money now. Can I give it back to you so that I might not be on fire? Please? Anyways, Darmani didn't even let death stop him. His whole goal was to save his people, which were freezing as a result of a freak snowstorm. You can't be so casual at stuff like that. Hurry up and buy some gear. He is, in my opinion, the epitome of what a Goron should be. But even then, there are others that are more steadfast, more powerful, more strong-willed than even Darmani. And these are ones like Darbus. Darbus is the Twilight Princess chieftain. He found a piece of the... what is it? It's a fused shadow, and it corrupted his mind and body. This, of course, due to his rampages, caused him to be destructive, angry at virtually everything around him. And it was virtually impossible for any Goron, human or otherwise, to get anywhere close to the demonic entity known as Virus. And this, I suppose, is where a lot of people would stop with him. But after he is released from the control of the fused shadow, he becomes one of the most prominent allies that Link has in Twilight Princess, focusing on using his raw strength to help Link through numerous circumstances, including but not limited to breaking through bedrock to be able to reach the hidden village of the Sheikah. All of this is to say, Darbus and the Gorons have always been an incredibly notable group since their inception in Ocarina of Time. But I might hear a couple of you clickety-clacking away. Aren't there other types of Gorons? You seem to talk about the ones that are all power, all rough and tough. And there are. There are ones like Bigoron, who focus on building longer than average swords. You have Gorons that are more about their wit and knowledge than they are about their physical capabilities, like the ones like the Goron chieftain from Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. But these are kind of a minority among the various Gorons. They tend to be much more strong-willed and admittedly kind of charismatic as a general statement. And if I'm being honest, it was also Daruk that offered Link his first rock roast. Something that inevitably ended up with Link trying to eat all of the rocks, because salt can't be the only tasty rock. And honestly, I think that was a really bad idea on Link's behalf, but I can't necessarily judge because, let's face it, we all have weird tastes in some way, right? Anywho, this particular shrine is all about using the bow in order to get flames to activate and burn leafage and whatnot down. Under ordinary circumstances, you could do this shrine fairly easily. It's an easy shrine to do pauseless. It is an easy shrine to do as virtually any subset of skills is more than reasonable. But unfortunately, at the moment, this one is currently out of reach, just due to the fact that I am somebody who needs to do a lot of learning before I pull off some of what makes this possible or not. Now, there is another, I suppose, statement that we can make about Breath of the Wild and its progression. But I dare say at the moment, I believe it's time for us to shut down for the day. If you like what you see, drop a like, leave us a scribble, and we'll catch you next time. Until next week, Have a good one.